Hello, my name is Christian and this is my 6th video. This video is going to be longer than usual because I've been overflowing with ideas and I've got a lot that I'd like to say and I want to say it before I forget. In these videos I share my thoughts, what I've been finding interesting, in the hope that the way in which I think can make better sense to myself and to other people. In other words, I'm trying to provide some kind of document of how Christian Mari thinks. I hope that you find it interesting, though I totally understand if you don't. I'm shooting this in St. John's Anglican Church in Fremantle. I've just finished my watch once again. If you're ever in Fremantle, do pop in and say hello to me. I'm usually here on a Monday. So, for this video, I want to talk about names and lemons. So, there's an author that I love. His name is Milan Kundera. He's my favorite author. I've read all of his books. And in one of his books, he describes a woman who is convinced that the neighbors are stealing the lemons from the tree in her front yard. Every day when she opens the door and she walks out the front onto the steps, she looks at that lemon tree and she can see a spot where a lemon should be, but isn't. And there's no evidence of fallen fruit on the floor, and so she's convinced that the neighbors have stolen her lemons. And she's so fascinated by this that eventually her country is invaded by its neighbor, and the enemy tanks are rolling down the street in the background. And yet all this woman can see is in the foreground a spot on a tree where a lemon should be. I love this story because it reveals to me how there are things which fascinate us and only us, which are individual, which distract us from bigger events happening in the world. And boy, are there a lot of big events happening in the world currently. Yeah, there's proverbial or literal tanks rolling down many streets. So the question then is, what is your lemon? What is your missing lemon? What is the thing that fascinates you and only you? That if you were to describe it to somebody, it might sound a little bit strange or a little bit petty, and yet boy, it takes up a lot of your attention. So in this video, I'm going to share with you my lemon. Maybe the name for this video can be When Life Takes Your Lemons. So, my lemon, the thing that fascinates me is social skills and friendliness. A formative memory of mine, I was little, I was at, I think it was Butland's in England, and I was just playing and this kid ran up and he said, "All right, mate, you want to be my mate?" And I was delighted and I said yes, and we were friends for an hour or so before he ran off. And that kid, I suppose you could see him as like one of my first ever role models, for bravery to run up and ask if somebody just wants to be your friend. And I've tried to maintain that lesson deliberately. I reminded myself in my early teens, my teens, and my adult life that little boy was onto something, and it's kind of cool to go up to people and ask if they want to be your friend. If you can get away with it, and you don't seem peculiar. So, I'm going to share a few stories about why I feel like this lemon is missing from my tree, and why it's fascinating me. So, the first story is, I went into a restaurant a little while ago, and the bartender was there, and I said, "Good evening, nice to meet you." And his first response was, "Oh my God, you're so friendly. That's a real nice change." And that struck me like a bus. How is it now unusual for somebody saying, "Good evening, how are you?" How is that so unusual? I'm aware that my own milieu, or my own habitus, as we might say in sociology, is surrounded by the people that I speak to and I attract. And so I assume that everybody is talkative, but apparently out there, beyond my own world, beyond my own lemon tree, people aren't saying hello to one another, to the point where a simple hello is now mind-blowing and a real change of pace. This happens fairly often, actually. It's been shaking me out of my self-induced slumber, where I'll be nice to somebody and they will respond with abject surprise and say, "Wow, what a change of pace." I don't know what the hell is happening out there in Australia or what the hell is happening with people, but apparently friendliness is quite a rare occurrence indeed. Second story. I got into an Uber the other day and it was a share Uber. The Uber driver's name was Tarek, and so I started speaking with him. And then the next passenger got in and there was silence. And the third passenger got in and the silence persisted. And neither of them chatted with one another or with I or with Tarek. And so I started speaking once again, and here we arrive at names. I said, isn't it so amazing how that when we're little, we hear a word and we say, what does that mean? And we do our best to remember it. And yet there's a word that we all go by, and it's called your name. It's your name. And yet so few people consider what their name means. That blows my mind. It completely blows my mind. I feel like we're sleeping on it. So it turns out Tarek means the last star in the night sky. Yeah, the last star. So it's like the opposite to Venus. It's the opposite to the mooning star, to morning star, to Lucifer and Phosphorus. It's a beautiful, beautiful name. And we joked that if he's ever late as an Uber driver, it's because he's the last star to arrive, which was amazing. And then there was this other woman, and her name was Charisse, which means cherished, apparently, which is absolutely beautiful. And we started chatting, and it was fun, and we learned what one another's names mean. And I was the only person, me and Tarek were the only people that knew what our names mean. These other women had never taken an interest. Never occurred to them to ask what their name means. I can't even wrap my head around people make it so far in life without thinking about that. Anyway, as I went to get out of the Uber, Tarek said he's been driving an Uber for 2 years, and that's the first time he's had a conversation. That wasn't just busy night, mate. Wrap your head around that. Wrap your head around that. 2 years, thereabouts. Uber driver, many people, first conversation had. Then Charisse said that, yeah, she's going to remember that conversation. It was so interesting. Usually she's just silent in Ubers, right? All of these passengers, I just don't know what's going on out there. How is it that people keep company with one another and don't show any interest in themselves or one another? Is it politeness? Is it shyness? Is it anxiety? It's perhaps a whole bunch of them. The universe is comprised of Venn diagrams, but it drives me to distraction. So this is my lemon. When I am meeting with people, or when I meet people and there is no greeting, there is no introduction, there is no hello, here I am, this is my name, how do you do? That is a missing lemon from my tree, and I fixate on it, and it troubles me, and I think about it. It's to the point where I'm fully aware that the world is in a very, very precarious state. We are very much living in that old curse of interesting times. And yet before me is this tree, and what is missing is this lemon, and what that lemon is niceties, which is a way to trivialize it. Relating is perhaps a better way to put it. Chatting. Yeah, so that's my lemon. Now, I'm going to give you an example of why I think I have it right and other people have it wrong. If I could be so bold to say, and just today, I will be. I understand that people might not chat with one another for good reasons. But if you don't have a reason and you're just not chatting, I think that you're actually, in fact, missing out of a great deal. Most of the opportunities I've had in life have been from friendliness, from saying to somebody, all right, do you want to be my mate? This is my name, how are you? And so on. Okay? So here are some examples just from today. Today, a man named Alan walked into the church. He's from the United States, and his job is to transport bone marrow, or rather to accompany bone marrow to people who need it. It turns out that there's this young person, not too far from here, from Fremantle, who needed bone marrow, and nobody had the bone marrow that they needed. At the same time, over in Mumbai, there is a young lady who needs bone marrow, and her auntie is heartbroken. And so she gets tested, and sadly, the bone marrow in this auntie is not the bone marrow that her niece needs. And so she can't help. But out of curiosity, she said, does anybody else need this bone marrow? And the registry revealed to her this young person living not too far from where I'm sitting now who did indeed. And so this man, Alan, had transported that auntie's bone marrow over here to give to this young person. Isn't that an incredible story? Doesn't that just make you so happy? How miraculous that is. How wonderful. Sad for the niece. Desperately sad. But at the same time, there's something beautiful about the story for the others. Here's another one. There's a bloke that comes in here, his name's Mark, an older gentleman. There's lots of older people who come in here to have a conversation with me. And this gentleman, and he is a gentleman, he's into mathematics and physics. And I've been trying to get him to appreciate epistemology and ontology, and we're really hitting it off with one another. And today he described to me, and have you ever thought about this, why it is that a mirror will reverse what is displayed horizontally, but won't reverse it vertically? Have you ever thought about that? When you show something in a mirror, it is reflected, reversed, but only horizontally, not upside down. Have you ever thought about that? Do you wonder why that is? Mark explained it to me today, and I think that I understand. Fascinating, just deeply, deeply interesting, amazing. Now, if I had sat on my phone, or if I had done anything other than greet them, say hello, I would not have experienced that beauty in the world of that auntie sending her Mumbai bone marrow to Fremantle, and I wouldn't know why it is that mirrors reflect, reverse horizontally but not vertically. Okay, so that's professional and networking benefits aside. Yeah, and so I don't think that I'm as trivial as an old lady nitpicking over missing lemons. I think there's something to my dismay of this missing lemon from the social tree. So here we are. As I post these videos, I'm wondering where does it fit in, and I shouldn't be thinking that. I shouldn't be thinking in terms of how do I can modify this. But what I would like, if I were to fit it in somewhere, is for it to be that somebody maybe out there thinks in a similar way to me, and I've described it in a way that has helped them to understand themselves. That would be a goal. If you could see my YouTube habits, you would be very concerned about me. I spend a lot of time watching videos of people crying, saying that they have no friends. Like 35-year-old beautiful people with no friends, and crying about it. There's one that I'm watching at the moment called Shelby Exists and Makes Stuff, and it's this woman living on the other side of the world who is just extremely sad. And I also watch lots of videos about autistic people relating their experiences. I find that all very helpful. So the big one that I watch is called Autistomatic. This stuff, I know that they're posting it not necessarily with the former a misery porn, the latter is just helpful. I think they're posting it as a way of reaching out, okay? Not commodifying, but finding likeness in the world. And so it might be that people aren't reaching out in person and saying, how do you do? And they're doing it through YouTube channels, in which case you found another way, which is wonderful. Okay, I'm going on about it. Let me conclude by summarizing. If it blows your mind that people say hello, how do you do? If you find it shocking that somebody could take an interest in you, then I think you are now increasingly in a majority. And I think that there's something wrong with that and worrying with that, about that. I think whatever it is about life, it's taking our lemons. And so I would encourage people to have the initiative to reach out and to say hello and blow that person in the hospital's mind when you show them that you can be kind. Give your Uber driver or the passenger a conversation that means that they'll remember that you existed. And you'll likely remember that they existed. There's something to that. Yeah. So yeah, that was a bit more reflective. Thank you so much for listening. This one was more of a ramble. I hope it was positive. I intend my next one to be extremely negative indeed. So please put on your misery boots, strap yourself in, and prepare for that. wonderful day.
When we undressed to pray, my love, she got carried